So our topic today is OEM specific training, and this time it is Mercedes-Benz. We've been doing this series throughout the year here, and we have a few more to go in the coming weeks. But tonight, like I said, it is Mercedes-Benz. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start with some history. So Benz here, Mr. Benz, Carl Friedrich Benz, came up with this little thing right here, and some folks credit this to being, say, like the first actual like automotive type machine. Certainly looks like a carriage and it looks like a tricycle, but it has a motor and it's got wheels and it's got a seat. So this was in 1885. This was the Benz patent motor wagons. What this is called? The Benz and Corporation or Company, founded in 1883. DMG was Daimler, and that Daimler Motoren Gesellschaft. I'm not good at German. But that was founded in 1890. And then both companies merged in 1926 as Daimler-Benz AG, and they began manufacturing under the name Mercedes-Benz. And they took the name Mercedes-Benz because Mercedes was the name of DMG's most important vehicle that they had, that they sold. All right. So bringing up to closer to present day anyways, they partnered with Studebaker in 1958 to start selling vehicles in the U.S., and then they merged with Chrysler, as we may recall if you were around back then, in 1998 to form Daimler Chrysler. And out of that Daimler Chrysler merger, the Sprinter van was born. Sprinter van, it's a Mercedes now, but it was, you had a Dodge version, or there's a Ram version of it, there's a Freightliner version of it. So that was really born from that merger in 1998, but a couple other things too, like Chrysler Crossfire, things of that nature. And they sold their majority share of Chrysler in 2007, which brought us to Fiat Chrysler and so on and so forth down the road to where we are now. So let's talk sales. Top sales numbers for Mercedes. And it's kind of an interesting trend over the last few years, but overall, in the last 10 years or so, 2013 to 2023, C-Class overwhelmingly, and the E-Class were the two top vehicles there, 622,000 and 440,000 respectively. Then we have the GLA, which is kind of one of the newer ones. To be number 3, that's pretty good. And then we just keep on going down there all the way down to like the G-Class, 60,000 over 10 years. It's not that's pretty pricey. The G-Wagon's pretty pricey, so that's probably why they only sold 60,000 over those past few years. But another interesting trend is if you look at this sales graph by year. So this is by year, and then each model is one of those stripes there. Now, some of the models have gone away, like some of the ones in the middle here, but the sales weren't really taken up with other models. You see in about 15 and 16, there's a huge drop off in overall. Now, this is North America. This isn't globally. They still sell a ton of vehicles over in Europe. But in North America, I just find it really interesting that it just dropped off so heavily, and it's just continued to drop off over the years into 2023. So just overall sales for Mercedes have gone down. Now, I don't usually put this chart in there, but it was glaring at how quickly it dropped off like that. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. So you will have fewer Mercedes to work on in the future, I guess, if the trends keep going that way. All right, so some top models that we picked out off the top of the top. The 2013 C-Class, that was kind of the high water mark for that. You'll also notice some of these models are a little on the earlier side of that scale, and that's just because the sales had dropped off. So 2013, the C-Class, was the third generation of the C-Class, is available with a 1.6, 1.8, and 3.5 liter engines, and 6.3 liter available in the AMG, and a 7-speed automatic transmission. 2013 E-Class, fourth generation, available with 3.5, 4.6 gas engines and a 3-liter diesel, and also had a 5.5 liter AMG variant. So if you don't know who AMG is, that is their sports class. I think my camera just went away. Let me see. I'm gonna look on the feedback. If not, if so, I'll just turn off the camera. Just keep talking. But 7-speed automatic transmission available for that, and it was a $1 billion facelift for that model for that year. So they spent $1 billion and redid the headlights and the body panels and all that stuff. $1 billion, and they came up with that car. Anyway, looks like my camera is still going, so we're good. All right. And then the new kid on the block, like I said, this is a fairly new model for them, but it was very high on the sales. So first generation. It was available only with a 2-liter engine in North America. Other engines are available worldwide, but it was only available with a 2-liter engine here. 7-speed DCT transmission, it's a dual clutch. And Infiniti Q30 and QX30 were also based on that same platform. So they just kind of changed the sheet metal around with that. And that's what you have for a 2018 GLA. It's kind of one of those crossovers, right? It's a lot of SUVs and crossovers nowadays in the States anyways. So some common issues. Misfire issues, much like many manufacturers have misfire issues. But one interesting one was PCV issues. So they have some codes that they set, certain engines, and you'll see that when we get to top codes here in a minute, that were for the PCV system pressure. And that's kind of one of the pieces of the system right there. It's kind of like a little filter block, filters the oil out of the PCV system. Timing chain wear. As a lot of vehicles with timing chains, you know, the guides wear out and the chains stretch and so on. And then SAM issues. So that's another thing, because a lot of it, I believe, what they told me was kind of had to do with where they are in the car. But this is the signal acquisition modules. Those are like the body control modules, the front one and the rear one in there. And it's kind of like BMW footwell module. But they have a lot of issues with those. They're like stupid cheap to replace, but you have to, when you do replace them, you have to program it needs to be done. Things like that. But a lot of issues with those. So some common codes, and you will see a common theme here. Let's see. A lot of it's in the C class. There's one GLC and an E. Most of them are on that same 2-liter engine and one 1.8-liter engine. These are the top codes out of the scan tool, by the way. So these are the top codes that come up on the scan tool when people scan cars. So engine oil pump actuation valve malfunction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 10. And then PCV valve malfunction 1, 2, 3 times, and then a cam sensor code on the end there. So a lot of those PCV valves, like I said, and oil pump actuation valves. It's kind of interesting that those are the top 10 codes for Mercedes. Actually, I don't even think we need a 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, top 9 codes. All right, some OEM-specific features. So by and large, they don't have a lot of the, like compared to some other things like BMW, where they got 5 different ways to change the intake geometry and different ways to open and close the valves and advance and retard timing and things like that on like Vanos and stuff like that. They don't really have stuff like that in Mercedes. There's just kind of here's what you get. Nothing really, I wouldn't say overly fancy, maybe a complex repair, like pricey repair, but not necessarily overly complex. So what is unique about Mercedes is their codes, right? So chassis codes and engine codes and transmission codes. You will see this come up a lot. If you've never had occasion to scan a Mercedes or go through and manually ID a Mercedes or even work on it in the scan tool, you'll notice there are codes for like everything. So chassis codes for sure. So W's for short wheelbase sedans and SUVs, V's for long wheelbase sedans, etc. Roadsters, coupes, station wagons. You can see it up there on the screen as to kind of what they have. So that would be when you're IDing a vehicle, it's going to come up with a chassis code, and then there's a sequential number kind of like behind it that says, you know, what chassis that is. So like a W111 is a short wheelbase sedan. And then another example you're going to see is for the engines, right? So that's a 272 engine, variant 977. So they have a lot of different variants in there as well. Same thing with transmissions, right? So that's a 722 transmission. So if you're looking up parts for a transmission, you'd want to look up the 722 and then a certain variant of it, like the 960 in that case. So they do a lot of that sort of cryptic, I don't know. When you're trying to order parts, it could be interesting because they have many different variants. Kind of like Volkswagen have their different variants, but it's not numbers, it's letters. So that is one thing that's very unique about Mercedes. And that brings me to tips from a tech. So this is from one of our diagnostic reps up here in New England, and he's a former, used to work on lots of different makes of European vehicles. But one big thing that he wanted to mention was on the M272 and the M273 motors. Once again, back to those number variants, right? So with those engine timing chains, they have a lot of timing chain problems. Timing chain will stretch, guides will wear, tensioners will fail, all the usual suspects, but seems to be a little more common on these than others. And there is a unique and easy way to check to whether or not your timing chain is stretched. If you think you have a timing chain problem, I actually found a video from Mercedes and took some screenshots off of that on how to diagnose this problem. So we have you're going to remove both cam sensors. They're in the front of the engine there. They're kind of hanging, and you can see the holes there, just kind of sitting there. So those are the cam sensors. You want to remove them both from the front of the engine. And then you will turn the engine clockwise and line up the mark on the crank. Now, this is, of course, with a brand new engine, so I'm not sure how visible that mark will still be there. But you'll turn the engine clockwise, line up with the mark on the crank. And then you will check there is a mark on the cam gear, and the marks are designed when they're in the right spot to line up with these holes where the cam sensors are. So there will be a mark on the cam gear. So this one, in that case, it is lined up. It is centered in that hole. So that means it's good. This one's off-centered. This one's kind of a little up in the hole. So that is out of time. So that indicates that we have a timing chain issue with the timing chain is stretched. Or I suppose if I put it back together and I'm turning it over and it's not in time, after I turn it over a couple times, then you would know it's out of time and wear, right? So it's a couple ways you could use it. So that is a good, quick little way to go in there and check. That was a nice little tip. All right, now OEM-specific functions. So we're talking scan tool functions. So they have a fair number of unique scan tool functions. Injector quantity adjustment is one of them. Other manufacturers have that too, like where you have to replace the injector, you type in a code, and it gives you you have to type in the number, and it tells the computer how much fuel that injector flows, so it fires it properly. There's also numerous adaptations in there. So you see adaptation fuel pump, adaptation values just in general, teach-in of camshafts, programming the ignition, etc. So tons and tons of different adaptations that are in there. There's also a lot of coding that can be done with the scan tool as well. Also, teaching of transmission is important. So that is should only be performed when the control unit was replaced, the electro-hydraulic control unit was replaced, or the automatic transmission itself was replaced. You need to basically relearn the transmission to the vehicle so the vehicle understands how this transmission or the component that you replaced should act with the vehicle. And then we have suspension height adjustment. There's different ways of doing that, and that's for activation and checking of the suspension. There also is, you need to do this level calibration if the level sensor has been replaced, the aromatic control module has been replaced, or the vehicles have been incorrectly calibrated. Level calibration must only be done on a chassis alignment system, so it needs to be done on an alignment rack. Vehicle does not need to be exactly level for the calibration process to happen. Brief description is use the up-down button to move the specified target level and save it with the inclinometer. After the specified level has been reached, continue to entry of the inclined angle, entry of vehicle stored in the inclinometer. To raise the suspension stress, the vehicle responds after a delay period of approximately 5 seconds for safety reasons. So you hit the button and you got to wait 5 seconds and then it goes. There's also on some of the air suspension, particular air suspension variants on the vehicles. It has, you may have seen it before, rodeo mode, they call it, where it actually opens and closes the air valves and makes the vehicle kind of like rotate around on its four wheels, kind of going up and down like that. So that's definitely unique to Mercedes on that one too. So there's some other tests there. Now, before we go live, there is a caution, a word of warning that I want to let you know. When leaving a module, the tool will prompt you to cycle the key. You must cycle the key when exiting the module, or vehicle damage can result. You have to make sure that when it tells you to turn the key off, turn it off. You're going to click the button, then it's going to wait a second, and then it's going to tell you to turn the key on. Make sure you follow those instructions properly. You also must be sure to change vehicle on any tools that communicate wirelessly, like a Verus or a Zeus, before you disconnect the wireless module from the vehicle. You need to hit that change vehicle button. Now, why do I need to do that? Because it's not all of them, but there are certain models where if you leave it in a communicating state and you just pull, disconnect the connector, it will lock up the car. We've had people report to us that, oh yeah, the scan tool locked up the car. It's not really the scan tool, it's kind of a design feature of the car, but it will lock up the car. You won't be able to communicate with it anymore. You won't be able to do many functions. Sometimes it won't even start. It needs to get towed to the Mercedes dealership and needs to get reflashed, multiple modules. So not an inexpensive oops. So don't make the oops. Make sure you back all the way out and make sure when it says end communication, you need to make sure you cycle the keys. So make sure you just follow the instructions and everything should be okay. But we have had reports of that. And it's not just Snap-on tools. It's, really any scan tool. If it leaves it in that state, that could be a problem. All right, let's go live on the car. Or live on the tool, not the car. Tool. Well, we're going to look up some cars. Look at a few things. So first one we're going to do is the C250 C-Class 2013. And load that up. Now, note I am in a simulator, so sometimes things happen in simulators, especially with European cars, where you might have to choose variants or choose different module variants or something like that. But if I were to go into, say, like the engine and just see what we got in here. So there's an example. I have to choose a control module. And then, of course, codes data, functional tests. If I go into functional tests, we have actuator tests, special functions, output controls, adaptations. If I go into actuator tests, you'll see all sorts of different actuators that need to go. Intake and exhaust cam solenoids, purging switchover valves, fuel injector, turning them on and off, fuel pumps on and off. Special functions, resetting a learned value of the gasoline particulate filter if it's equipped. By the way, those are starting to show up over in the States. They've been in Europe for a little while, but they're starting to show up in the States as well. They work very much like a diesel particulate filter, except for gasoline. So Mercedes, I think we've seen them on the first ones in the States have been on Mercedes. Output controls, that's going to be your throttle valve and engine oil pump valve. That might be very important for that engine oil pump code that was in there. And then adaptations, right? So correction of ignition programming, fuel quantity, injection quantity adjustment. Talked about that earlier. So replacing the injector is essential to save the QR code of the new injector in the engine control unit. It's a 5-character number located on the body of the injector. It's also usually on the box or bag. All right, and then all I'd have to do is it's going to tell you what injector is where, and then I can go and hit edit, and I can just type it in if I wanted to, and then hit OK. There's the old one. There's the new one. Program it in. Be done with it. Hit OK. And it's just going to cycle me back once again because I am in a simulation mode, right? And then on this particular vehicle, the 2013, it's got coding. So there's a couple different coding options. There's just massive menus that just kind of tell you how they like EGR, operation modes, different codes that don't even have definitions. Once again, probably because I'm in simulator mode, air conditioning, that sort of thing. Lambda control is another coding menu for another bunch of features, engine variants. Remember how I said there's different engine variants, right? NOx storage, different things like that. So there's a lot of things that you could cause damage if you don't know what you're doing as well. So if you are going to go in and do those sorts of things, make sure you know what you're doing before you. All right, continue. And then once again, there's that cycle the key, right? Got to cycle the key on, kind of like the key off. And it brings me back to the beginning. Let's go in and check some SureTrack information. It's not a C350. I want a C250. Once again, with the engine codes and the chassis codes and things like that, it knows it's a C-Class, but it doesn't know that's 250 in this case. The 1.8 liter engine, 63,699 repairs. And once again, Not a lot of weird stuff except for that like one that PCV valve code that was kind of weird, but things like plugs, brake pads, ignition coils, coolant pipes, cylinder misfires. There's thermostat code there. A lot of misfires, fuel regulator, engine doesn't start, coolant leaks, timing chain number one on that, right? So that is not a lot of weird stuff on this. Let's just change to a different model because it'll be a different engine on that. Well, it's 300. It's just one engine too. That's the 3.5 liter engine. So a lot of misfires on those again. Pads, rotor, spark plugs, the usual suspects. And then let's go to the C63, which is the AMG. There, 5,600 repairs, not very common on that one. C63. But once again, system lean, misfire, things like that. Okay. Let's go to the next one. This guy. So let's say we'll go on that one again. It's going to be very similar because they're very similar engines. So in this case, look at all the different variants of engine control computers that could be in this vehicle. You would never see that hooked up to a real car, just so you know. This is just because I'm in the simulator, but that's how many different variants they have. So if I do like codes, data, functional tests, adaptations. So this one doesn't have the coding in this particular module, but enable of engine start after a crash. That's probably pretty important, especially for body shop people. Teaching of used fuel injectors, resetting of adaptations again. So that will be, I think this gives me an error. Yeah, it's just kind of, it tells me what I need to do. So ignition on, combustion engine standstill, etc. And then you just walk through that. I can't do it because I'm not on a car. Okay. And then let's go to short track. Three liter. Oh, that's the diesel. The diesel's 3 liter. 3.5 liter, that is the gas engine. And once again, engine code. Which engine code is it? 952 or 957? Okay, so you can go in there. There's the pads and rotors again. Headlight bulb. Misfires. Random misfire. Cabin air filters. That sort of thing. Go to only E-class. Yeah, E300. That's a 3.5 as well. 550. 4.6. So that's a turbocharger, evap codes, misfires again. 2,400 repairs, not a ton of repairs on that vehicle either. And then lastly, we will go to the PLA. All right, so there's your thermostat and there's your PCV regulator valve performance. So if I were to go in there, and you can see they don't provide a ton of information on this either. Mercedes doesn't. So important to know that is it's called PCV valve. There we go. You get wiring diagrams, you go to PCV valve. Because there's wiring diagrams for the PC. All sorts of weird stuff on that. All right, so that is Mercedes. Not a ton on that one. But I do have a question that I want to definitely address here in a minute. Let us go on to the next thing. Let's talk about next week. Modern ignition systems testing and analysis. Now, when I did this the first time, this was very popular. This is the marketing department watches, the numbers on the channel and stuff like that. And they're like, oh my goodness, why did so many people watch that one? I'm like, it's got to be the topic because anytime we do anything on ignition systems, on those ignition systems, it just seems like it's a lot of confusion around it. So we're going to lay it out again, talk about ignition testing, how you're going to test, what you're going to look for, that sort of thing. Yeah, so we're going to cover that next week. Same time and same place, 6 and 9 Eastern. Go to snapon.com/OT to register if you want to watch on Zoom. Otherwise, you can watch the 6 p.m. class live on YouTube like we're doing right now, youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics. If you are watching on YouTube, please make sure you like and subscribe. It definitely helps. It helps us out. And the 9 p.m. Eastern class is going to my Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/SnapOnJason, all one word, no dash in the Snap-on. If you want to see any of the other classes in this series, so it's going to be anywhere from ADOS through that ignition system testing class. 95 episodes. Episode 100 is coming in 5 weeks, so 6 weeks. So we will see that pretty soon. All for free, about half hour, 40 minutes long, depending. And all available on the YouTube channel. If you scan that QR code, it will bring you to the YouTube channel and subscribe you. So make sure you check those out if you want to see more. Also, do we have your email address? Maybe we do, maybe you don't, maybe we don't. I'm suspecting maybe we don't, considering how many scan tools we have out there and how few email addresses we have attached to those scan tools. If we don't have your email address, you may be missing out on some technical content. Like we do some technical focus articles, SureTrack blogs, quick tips, new product release emails. They'll send out my schedule periodically. So, usually on a quarterly basis. So if you don't get those, you may want to sign up for your email. So hit that QR code and you'll be able to type in a form with that. We're not going to spam you like a million times a day or anything. It's like maybe a couple times a week. If that, I think it's even a couple of times a month is what it goes down to. So definitely check that out. Things like timing chain, in this case, diagnostic timing chain. So yeah, make sure we have your email. All right, let's get the questions in 1 second. But before I do, I also want to make sure I mention my buddy Keith. So Keith also does free diagnostics training every week. He does it Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. It is Zoom only, so go to snapon.com/OT if you want to watch it there. It's always good to get a little refresher if you want to learn a little bit more about your tool. They're about an hour and 45 minutes long. First half is setup. Let's make sure your Wi-Fi works. Let's talk about secure gateway. Let's talk about Snap-on Cloud, things like that. And then he goes through a bunch of scanner functions, first half. Then he takes about a 5-minute break. That's about an hour. And then he takes about a 5-minute break. And then he goes through the scope and meter functions as well. Definitely a very thorough class. Definitely something you should tune in for. So let's look at questions. Got a couple on the Zoom first. John was a little late, and that's fine, John. You can always watch the replay on YouTube if you want. My volume is way down. Okay, I will wish I saw that earlier. I will definitely make sure I turn that up for next time. I have one coming in the shop. If I lock it up, will my tool unlock it? So if you're talking about that, where if you don't back out properly and it locks up the car, it won't. You would need a factory tool to go in and do. So just be aware. Don't do that. All right, let's go to YouTube. Nick's saying hello from the UK, as always, every Wednesday, every Tuesday he's here. So they definitely welcome. Thank you. The Winton, welcome. Thank you as well. Alex Tolstoy says hello and good evening. And he has a question. I think you asked this question on another video, or maybe the last time this video was played in a comment. And I had to get had to talk to somebody in engineering about it, and I just never got around to answering your comment. So, in the 2024 GLK 350, I can't reset the oil sieve as much as my Zeus says there's no gateway connection or something like that, right? So, this is, let me pull this up here. Pull up my scanner. Let me see if I can duplicate it on mine. And then if not, we'll still have a discussion, but I just want to see if I can duplicate it on mine. GLK. Hey, and you get to see the cool little chassis codes and stuff. So on these two with the chassis codes, to make sure you get it right, it's the first 4 of the VIN, and it'll tell you what the VIN is over here. So that was a GLK, he said, right? GLK. And of course, they're not in order. I don't even see GLC. GLK. There's a ton of sprinters. Let's do Let's just pick something else then. GLC. Might be why it's not on the list. And we'll do resets. Okay, that's why it's different. GOK is on this one. No, GOK is not on that one either. I did. 250. Let's do that. Sure. No content available. Reset procedure. Content available. So if you're going through this menu and going to there's no content available because that comes from Mitchell and there's no Mitchell content available. Let me go into engine and see if there's something in there. Nope. No special functions on that one. So if you're getting that error where it says no content available, it's because there's nothing in Mitchell yet for it. If you're getting no gateway, they are starting to put gateways on these vehicles. We don't know who they're going with, whether they're going with AutoAuth or somebody else. And if it's AutoAuth, then AutoAuth doesn't support it yet either, because you only have the option for Nissan or FCA. So depending on what your error is, GLC, 2 liter. Never mind. Sorry. Hold on a second. Let me just double check. And can you let me know if that is the error that you're seeing, where it's no content available? Let me see GLC. GLC classes. 2 different ones. I always just pick the first one. 3 liter. That's certainly not that one. 2 liter. There we go. Okay. And let me just look down here and see if there's something else down here. Separate. Service and we'll reset. So those engine codes again. Okay, that's interesting. That could very well be. So that's what you're looking at. I can't duplicate the error. So I'm not 100% sure on how to answer your question. How's that? So if there's that no content available that you did see, then that's why, because Mitchell didn't have the content yet, and I pulled from Mitchell. Otherwise, if it was like a gateway something or other on the vehicle could have a gateway. But once again, if I don't have a simulator, I might not be able to do anything with that simulator. So either way, it's not supported in the, like through AutoAuth or anything like that either yet. So if it's secure vehicle gateway stuff, then that's why. If it's going through oil sets and resets and it says no content available, that's so either way. Okay. Good question though, because I remembered I saw that question and I wanted to make sure I got an answer. Let's see. See, Ferdinand Porsche worked for Mercedes in 1923, but did not like it. No, that's why I guess he went off to go spin off the Porsche. Jeremy says, "What about the Sprinter vans? I don't see many of." Well, I didn't cover any of them, so I don't know if you're being sarcastic about not seeing many of them, but I mean, I see Amazon all over the place, but he sees the cars more than the vans, right? So, yeah, it just wasn't high on the sales list, even though I guess they don't count sales towards to Amazon, I guess, or something. Lobo says hello. Wrenchen doesn't fix cars. Information fixes cars. That's right, Nick. And then Alex says thank you, and then enjoy your weekend. Then on Q&A and here. Let's see. Andrew says, will I be doing a video or have you done one on Hall effect sensors? Not Hall effect sensors as just a generalized Hall effect sensor, But I do talk about it in like my cam sensor videos and stuff like that, because a lot of them are Hall effect sensors. And I think in my ignition videos, I think I mentioned those a couple times in my couple of my ignition videos as well. Yeah. So not Hall effect sensor like as a general Hall effect, how Hall effect sensor works, but I do refer to like crank sensor, Hall effect crank sensor, how it works type of thing. So it'd be like the same thing. That's what you're looking for. All right. With that, that is my time. So I'd like to say thank you. Thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with me, taking a little bit of time out of your day, learning a little bit more about Mercedes. Hopefully, you'll join me next week for modern ignition systems. And with that, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a nice night and take care.